Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. We have got Sham and Simon here, and then we've also got Corey joining us, a new addition to the Fateless team. What is up, Corey?
How's it going?
Well, very, very, very good. Thank you. But I want to kind of pass it to you and let you introduce yourself to everybody out there and kind of let them know a little bit about your gaming history and kind of like your workflow in the gaming industry and what you do at Fateless and all that good stuff.
All right, well, I'm Corey. I'm the new head of product. I've had a great history in this industry. I've worn different sorts of product hats. I started out in product marketing at Sega, and when I was there, we had this big Sega Forever initiative where we released all of the classic Sega Genesis games, or not all of them,
Nice.
but quite a few of them on the mobile for free. And it turns out they're quite popular and very difficult. I don't know if you played Vector Man or Shinobi on your phone.
Oh,
Um,
man.
but games have gotten a lot easier over the years. I then rotated into more of a strategy role, R&D at Sega, sort of thinking what kinds of games we should make. Um, and after a while, I joined Fox Next Games, and Fox Next Games has a great story. There was this incredible studio called Kabam, and they made all these really awesome games like Contest of Champions. And one of the Kabam studios was acquired by Netmarble, and they're the ones who have the Marvel Contest of Champions games. And then the rest of Kabam became part of Fox Next, and they of course were known for Marvel Strike Force. And they had another game in the works with the Avatar IP, and they had a Storyscapes game, and they had a loot shooter with the Aliens IP in the works. And so I joined them in a central strategy role. I was doing market reports. I was doing a lot of competitive analysis and sort of helping them think, what can we add next to our games? And so it was a couple years of that when sort of interesting. Disney acquired Fox, and then Scopely acquired us from Disney. And
Like
then
this.
suddenly I was a part of Scopely, and Scopely has a lot of RPGs. We had Marvel Strike Force, of course, but Scopely had WWE Champions. They had The Walking Dead: Road to Survival. They had a Looney
Star
Tunes
Trek.
RPG. They had Star Trek Fleet Command, and they had
Yeah,
some
definitely.
top secret RPGs in development that were also pretty cool. I think there were at least 3 or 4 different RPGs in development while I was there. And Scopely had a really big strategy team. It was broken up into parts, and they didn't have specifically a product strategy team that was going deep into product. And so I helped build that team there during my first year. And we would go really deep into different parts of the RPG genre, especially. And so, the WWE Champions team would be interested in adding PvP tournaments. And so we'd look at like a dozen different RPGs in the market and see like this is how their tournament is. We would also just do an entire teardown of games when they were doing well. We saw Lords Mobile was suddenly like the #1 game on Google Play in the US. It'd been around for 4 or 5 years, and suddenly it was like #1 for a few months, and sort of like dug into that. And as I got to know more teams, I found a team working on an MMORPG, really for people who don't have time to play them anymore. And
Yeah,
I love MMOs.
that's
I
like
was
us.
playing,
Yeah, hang
yeah.
on. Wait, what?
Yeah.
And so, I played EverQuest during its heyday. That's like one of the great gaming experiences I had. And so I joined this team as its first LA side product manager, and very early concept stage, a lot of figuring out how do you make an MMO for people who don't have time for MMOs. And yeah, I think I learned how difficult it is to actually develop and ship a game from the very start to finish.
Yeah.
But we had a really amazing team. We had some great designers. Some of them are now working on games like Grand Theft Auto 6 and Hearthstone.
Wow.
And yeah, so after a few years of Scopely, I found myself at Netflix. And I was on the central live ops team helping mostly the internal game studios trying to figure out what kinds of games to make. And at Netflix, their games don't have monetization. So a lot of the thought was along the lines of what kinds of games can we bring to mobile that free-to-play publishers likely wouldn't do. Um, But I think I learned that actually it's much better when your game does generate revenue because then you can sort of create the most valuable and highest production quality experiences because you have a way to, cover your costs.
Was the
Right, but,
Netflix piece more around casual games then, like, or hyper casual, because of the kind of like scope of the game and the fact that you're not earning revenue?
We were sort of all over the board. So we had two basic divisions when I was there. There was the external games, and they were licensing anything and everything because they wanted a game for anybody. And so they would have some really hardcore games and some really broadly casual games. I think two of the most popular games from their team when I was there, one was Too Hot to Handle, which great show if you ever watched that on Netflix, but you can play it as a game. And another was Solitaire. Turns out people love Solitaire, and it's even better without advertisements.
Yeah.
Um, my favorite game they licensed was Bloons, TD6. It's like a tower
Okay. Yeah.
defense game, but you've got the monkeys.
I like
yeah.
that game
Uh,
actually. I
Yeah, it's
didn't
a
know.
great
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. That's a great game. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And then internally, we had this idea of swinging for the fences. So trying to figure out what sorts of games could be really big breakthrough hits. And so, one of the games that came out from internal was their Squid Games game. It's a little bit like Stumble Guys or Fallout Guys, but in the Squid Game setting, it's a lot of fun. Um,
A little
One of the
darker.
studios, Spry Fox, yeah, a little darker, but even more satisfying, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of great studios in internal. One of them, Spry Fox, I believe, announced they're working on a cozy MMO. But you might know them for their Cozy Grove games, which are absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I think just like how Netflix has action movies and cartoons and dramas, the games department there was sort of trying to accomplish anything and everything while I was there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I guess you've worked at some of the biggest companies and studios out there. Really, you talked about Sega, you talked about Scopely, Netflix. Like, what attracted you to this kind of like indie crew? Trying to build their first title, Godforge. What attracted you to Fateless when we came, I guess, knocking?
I've always appreciated the studios that are most open and inclusive to their communities. I look at like Digital Extremes and what they've done with Warframe, and they've got this conference and they're constantly sharing. And I always thought that that was the pinnacle. It's like a dev studio that talks to its community. I think Fateless is one of the first times where I've seen a community take matters into their own hands and say, we're just going to make the game ourselves. And what could be even more impressive than it's just like the dev studio is the community, right? And I thought this was sort of a unique opportunity to create a game that's actually what the community wants. Because that's the goal, right? Is you're trying to entertain people. And if they're telling you, this is what we want, sometimes that's really hard to hear inside a dev studio. Uh, but it's a lot easier when it feels like almost everyone in a design position here at Fateless is also an influencer. Brad was saying he's done over 5,000 videos, and
Yeah.
Hellhades
Yeah.
is sort of like an icon in the community. It's like everyone I meet seems to be a big member of this community. And I think that even just like in our Godforge alpha and the current playable build we have, you can see a lot of decisions that were made that I don't know if we could have made when I was at Scopely because we weren't the community. We were a dev studio trying to understand the community, but
Sure.
I think this is a very special opportunity here.
Well, and just to rewind for a second, I'm just actually really curious. How did you said I started at Sega. Well, how do you just start at Sega? You were like, hey guys, I'm coming over. Are you good? And they're like, yeah, sure, come on in.
So I actually have a different story from most. I was a professional musician. I did new experimental works of classical music, and I lived in Belgium, and I had my own ensemble. We called ourselves Ensemble Discord Workshop, and we were a little dysfunctional. Musicians aren't really trained in communication skills. It's all about passion, right? And we would perform around Europe, and then I also did a lot of freelance work. And I would wake up and discover I was performing in Poland or Italy or Korea, and I discovered I really enjoyed the music, of course, but also the production of these
Ooh.
concerts and the fundraising and a lot of the biz dev aspects of it. And so I went back to business school. I did my MBA at UCLA Anderson, and I discovered it's really hard to get interviewed for jobs when your background is a musician.
Sure.
And so naturally, I just started reaching out to anyone and everyone who was an alum on LinkedIn. And great guy,
Nice.
Joseph Kim, picked up the phone and spoke to me. And at that time, he was the chief product officer at Sega Networks, which was the
Brilliant.
studio at Sega publishing their games in the West. And he introduced me to Mike Evans, who was the chief marketing officer there. And, I had a few great conversations. One of the other guys on the team, David Bamberger, had also played the French horn when he was younger. And
Nice.
they just happened to have an opening for a product marketer. So I guess I was just lucky and found a way into the
Well,
industry through Sega.
now hold on. That's not lucky. What I heard there was I did something and therefore something happened to me. Like,
Right.
and
I
that is
actively
literally,
did this.
that's the Fateless motto, right? How many of our team, Sham, are through recommendations
Yes.
because of networking?
100%.
Like, putting yourself out there, having those conversations. Sham saying to me, Simon, we've got one more party to go to today. Oh, absolutely. Shatter, like, Sham, I'm checking out. He's like, no. There's still time. We've got one more.
That's right. That's
Meeting
right. Let's
people,
go.
really like putting yourself out there in the industry. It's, again, people will look at it and say, oh, that person got lucky. No, that is not getting lucky.
Yeah, it's funny how much work lucky people kind of put into getting things that they want.
Yeah.
But no, I mean that's crazy though. So your background was in music, but were you always a gamer like before this, or were you like, oh, I really want to work at a game company, or were you like applying to like, you know, I don't want to say like Whole Foods and just random places, you know what I mean? Like I guess is the question is, did you always know that you wanted to be in games at that point?
So I've definitely been a lifelong gamer. Um, but I knew almost nothing about the business world when I started working my MBA. You really wouldn't learn a lot of these concepts. I went to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, and we learned about music. And so the one thing I knew about business school was social entrepreneurship. And I saw so many coffee shops around the world that were all in the social enterprise. And so I had this dream of working in coffee because I love coffee.
Right.
But actually, I'm really happy to work in the gaming industry because I think a lot of what we do in music is similar to gaming. And I just really enjoy playing a great RPG. And when you're developing an RPG and you're talking about RPGs and you're playing RPGs, it's pretty great.
Just having fun at work. Yeah, it makes sense. And like I guess from that perspective, once you got into Sega, and then you were like, okay, I'm starting to move to the industry, and it seemed like you had a knack for understanding. I don't know. So maybe I guess what was the thing that you felt like your superpower was, like when you were in the room, when you were like a marketing analyst, or the things that you were starting off doing. What was the thing that you were that like kind of pushed you through the ranks, I guess, in a sense? What did you feel like your superpower was?
It might be like a double-edged sword, but I found that I had a lot more intensity than most people in the business world or in the gaming industry. In the music world, the people who bubble up to the top are all really intense people, very hardcore, working all hours of the day and night, weekends. And I sort of carried that with me into
Mhm.
Sega. And it didn't always help out. Actually, some people would be a little like, "What's going on, Corey?
Ooh.
Calm down." But I think that having a lot of intensity helps you have, that attention to detail, but also that willingness to put hours and hours and hours into playing these different games coming out of the market and to really digging deep into, whatever the project is, whether it's looking at data or looking at comps or looking at teams or strategies. Um, and yeah, I think you start to pick up ideas and directions to take that can lead to successful outcomes.
I think
Uh,
you've already, I think you've already been able to sort of come to the community actually with a couple of these kind of different surveys, and we start to ask questions around gaming preferences. Why are they in our community? Various different sort of tracks. I guess like how much can you take from that, which then becomes an action to try and improve our direction?
Well, hopefully everything. If you ask people questions and they give you feedback and they've, you know, given up their time to help you out, you want to hear them and think through what does it mean. And so in our audience, we called it like defining the audience survey. It's with this understanding that these are the people who are going to come in first,
Yeah.
and they're the ones who are really most committed to seeing us succeed and grow over time. And so we asked them different kinds of questions. We asked them questions at the motivational level to see when you take features and pain points out of the question, just what motivates them.
Mm.
And, the biggest surprise for me was climbing a leaderboard did not motivate them because, when I play Raid Shadow Legends, it makes me really happy to hit number one on these leaderboards in my little segment all the time.
Yeah.
And so I would have assumed that would be a big motivation for our audience. But on the other hand, we saw that, collaborating with people, contributing to your guild success, that was a really big motivation. And so when we think about like what sorts of experiences we can put in Godforge, we can lean into that. But we also asked them about, what sort of pain points, what are the biggest frustrations. We asked them about what sort of modes do they enjoy the most. We asked them about what appeals to them, like why do they care about Godforge? And I was actually really amazed. We gave them the option to choose influencer, but a lot of people felt that wasn't enough, and they had to write in Simon or Hellhades, and a lot of people wrote a full paragraph about how much they appreciate Simon, and all of these learnings then can feed into how we launch the game and how we talk to the community and how we flavor these different features or experiences, and really how we build this community, right?
A really, really important question here. When they were writing in influencer and they wrote in Simon versus Hellhades, which one was more? Was it Simon or was it Hellhades? You kind of remember?
I'd have to go and count.
Okay, we'll do a check here. We need to understand.
It's also worth saying at this point, like, yeah, look, I might do some of these videos. We've got such a massive and great team. Like, what have we got now? 35 strong, I think,
Yeah.
and everybody is just working. Like, they're so passionate and committed to what we're building. It's brilliant, actually. Like, just we're at this point where we're sort of working really focused. And yeah, I think intense is probably the right word, Corey, towards this alpha release. Everyone wants to put out a really great product. And yeah, I mean, I'm in a privileged position that I get to sit and talk about it once a week in a video. But actually, if you look behind the curtain, everybody's just got this same level of passion and commitment to the project, which I think it's quite special. I've worked in some big businesses, and it's, yeah.
You know what that reminds me of? When they tried to do Rage of the Legends Community Awards. And halfway through, it's like, okay, let's just give everything to Simon because there's no point in having a show.
Can we be done with this? Are we done
it's
here?
Like we have Streamer of the Year. Who is Hellhades? Oh, best.
Yeah.
Oh, Hellhades.
It was actually the most awkward, like, whatever it was, 2 hours of my life. I'm hosting this show, and I keep winning these awards, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is so fixed," because the host just keeps winning awards, and I'm like, I actually don't want this next award.
Please stop. Yeah.
please let it be someone else. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I was talking to a friend of mine who runs an outsourcing group, and he's got some people that are working with us right now, and we love working with them. And we were just kind of like, breaking down the day, how things were going, whatever. And he was like, Sham, how do you guys, or you as a group, how do you convince people to work so intense, like basically what you're talking about, so intensely, so focused, so much overtime, like just to step in when it's needed. Obviously people take their breaks when they need to. And I was like, I mean, it's not, there's no manufactured thing that we're doing here. It's really just, we talk to people. Everyone is pointed in the same direction at the exact same point. Everyone understands exactly what we're trying to do. Like you said, like we're all just like players that want to see a badass fun game. And so from coming that direction, like you come to work it doesn't really feel like work. Like I get up in the morning and I'm like, all right, what are we working on today? What are we doing? And I think that's probably
so sometimes so we kind of like we might do a complete critique of a screen. Okay, so it's literally like, okay, this one screen, do all the buttons work? Does everything do what it's meant to be doing? As a player, does it feel right? Does it have the right sort of feedback to me as a player? And you feel bad because really what that session is these are the things that don't work, right? That's basically the session. Like, this doesn't work, this doesn't do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
But you keep having to stop and just say, just to be clear, guys, the work so far has been really fucking good. Like, it feels really good, but let's just go back to these like little,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you don't want to like push people down the wrong route. Because actually, the team are working really well. We've made insane progress in the last even 2 months. But yeah, it's tough not to kind of like turn into that just like full critique mode, because ultimately that's what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that when the player gets into the experience, it's what they would expect it to be, but also they want to find these really fun moments and really engaging parts of pieces of content. So,
well, I mean, speaking of the game itself, I mean, like, I think this podcast will come out when we will have pushed out the Alpha 1, right? The beginning of Alpha 1, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I don't know. I mean, it could be all of us really, because we've actually gotten to now play it and grind and test out some of the systems. So maybe just to each of you guys, what's your favorite part of Godforge as it is right now? There's lots of stuff that we're going to be doing. But how about right now? Like, what have you enjoyed? And maybe I guess kick us off, Simon. Why not, Simon?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, for me, I really like the sort of cinematic combat and this kind of like ultimate system that we built. So I think there's a lot of strategic depth in the way you can store up an ult, the way you can build stats like initiative to get it more frequently. So you can have someone in your squad, in your team, that's going to be pushing the ult of everybody else if you want to build in that way. And you might have someone else who's like, I'm really like, even in our current state in alpha, when some of the systems are not operating yet, I could get Gilgamesh really focused on strong hit mechanics and like really ramp his damage up through that. And I don't know, I really feel like the gameplay, the combat feel is really great. And I think actually getting some of the feedback from that friends and family wave, I was like, what camera mode are you guys playing on? What are you enjoying? It was almost, I think, it was pretty even split between the 3 different cameras we've got in terms of what people wanted to do. It was slightly higher for the cinematic view, but ultimately, even in these different views, you still get that same sort of combat feel and those same systems kicking in. And it was, for me, it's actually really rewarding seeing some of the comps that other people had pulled together to beat a challenge. I had a couple of the friends and family were like, oh, I've gone rare only for this like level 60 boss, and that was the way I did it because of the mechanics. And for me, that's rewarding to feel like, yeah, that's what we want. It shouldn't be legendaries all the way. It should be mechanics to overcome a problem, which has always been the way we kind of spoken about it. So yeah, I probably rambled a bit there, but yeah, it's there's a lot, honestly, but that's the thing for me that stands out, that combat feel.
So satisfying. Yeah. What about you, Corey?
I think these characters are just amazing. I'm a big fan of like all these different ancient mythologies and seeing all these sorts of characters in a game together. I like our animal characters. I haven't gotten the dragon hero yet.
YDG is a good one.
His animations are actually so good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. My animal crew, I plan on seeing how far I can get down the caverns with it. And then this weapon imprint system is pretty amazing because you almost transform your character entirely depending on which imprint in which weapon you attach to your character. And I think it's like a next level of customization that I haven't really seen in a lot of mobile RPGs yet, that I think will give our game something new and special to enjoy along your journey.
Something juicy. All right, Brad, what do we got?
Yeah, like Corey said, the imprint system is something that I really love. But to say something else, I would say the overall feel and aesthetic, because my favorite has always been like the medieval fantasy, sword and board, bow and arrow, skill and tome. Usually either games are modern with like guns and bombs and all that, or They're like cartoony and anime or all that. And my favorite has always been the kind of game we're doing, like the dark fantasy, gritty, medieval, bows and arrows, swords, and stuff like that. So it's just so pleasurable for me to play games like that, like V Rising and Diablo 4, and that's always been my genre and my jam. So I kind of love that we went in that direction. So some of the systems that are my favorite from a design standpoint people may not have even seen yet. So I think
Yeah.
that excites me to kind of see how some of those systems are kind of like received by the player base.
Yeah.
And I'll close this out, I guess. So my favorite thing has actually been testing out the bosses. Like
Yeah.
the bosses are super. They're way deeper than I thought they were going to be. After we like when we first started doing, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is it. You know, he drops this, and then he's got his second phase, and you do this, and then as people kind of got through the caverns and got further and started to understand like how kind of intricate some of these fights can be, especially given the all the stuff that you guys are talking about, right? The different mechanics, the imprint system, the different ways that your team is made up, the ultimate system, and like it's just I don't know, it just gave me that like and this is kind of tooting our own horn, but it just gave me that satisfaction of like, okay, this is really fun to build teams, and that's what you want in these games. So I don't know, like that excites me that with 60 some characters, I forget what the exact number is, but 60 some characters, we're already, getting those feelings and getting people excited, well, at least me excited. And then really hearing the community also say kind of the same things, right? Because obviously, it's great that I enjoy it and that I'm having fun, but it's way more important that the people that we're doing this kind of friends and family
Well,
and alpha tests are having.
just talking to that. So we basically had a separate Discord pulled together for our friends and family testers to be able to do things like bug reporting and feedback forms. And the activity, this was like really, I'd say 50 active players out of the group that came in. Like the others tried the game, but 50 active players. That Discord general chat was probably as busy as my main Discord, which has got like 40,000 people in. Like it was just buzzing for days on end. And it was people sharing builds, sharing when they got a cool legendary drop or a cool epic drop, sharing when they got a weapon which paired up with their hero, sharing like, okay, look at this team comp that I've just beat this fight with. Like it was really engaging to just sort of see how people react. And at the moment that this video goes out, we got what 5,000 players going in for the first alpha test. We've got about 100 content creators that are going to be covering that first alpha. So
That's nice,
if you guys have
dude.
not seen it, come into the Discord, check the different community videos. There will be a lot of people streaming it and playing it. But I'm just super excited actually to see what that same sort of feedback loop looks like for a week from today. Because I think for an alpha, we're in a really good spot.
I think so too. And so for Corey, I guess I had a question around. So now that we're kind of kicking off and we're going into alpha and this 3-phase alpha, in your mind, what are the things that you're most excited to kind of to gather from the community? What do we most want to understand when we're doing this? I mean, I have in my mind, like obviously what we want to get, but I'd love to hear from your perspective.
Thinking about it. Yeah, so I think that our game has a lot of fresh takes on systems. Some things, within the space of squad RPGs, we're very innovative compared to Raid Shadow Legends or Summer's War or Dislight. A lot of these games that are all very similar, we're doing things that are clearly different because we believe it's more fun for the audience to do it this way. And so I want to understand how the audience feels about our weapon system, about the imprint system. Our combat mechanics, I think, are a little deeper and actually quite different from Raid Shadow Legends. It looks the same on autoplay, maybe, but when you're making the decisions, it's actually new. And so that's really cool. And our approach to character progression is going to, again, it might look similar with the stars, but it's different. And so I want to know how satisfying all of this is. And does it feel like we're the community taking matters into our own hands and creating the game that we've always wanted to create? And I think that when you ask any one person, it's pretty subjective. But when you have thousands of people and they're telling you at scale, yeah, we like this, we want more of this. That's the sort of learning I'd like to see, and the sort of feedback we're looking for. And to what Simon was saying earlier in this meeting, it's not necessarily looking for feedback where people say you're awesome. It's looking for feedback where people are saying, this is almost what it should be,
Mhm.
but have
Yeah.
you considered this little tweak here, or this additional button here, or this little change? And those sorts of very insightful feedback, that's valuable because then we can action it because the audience is telling us this little change here, and then it's perfect.
For the viewers,
So that's what I'm looking for.
is there one thing that has come up the most from that regard? Like, hey, could you guys maybe change this? Like for people watching this, is there something you've gleaned so far in that regard?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of asks right now for quality of life updates.
It's coming. It's coming. Don't worry.
Especially just like upgrading your heroes all the way to max. Um, our build very wisely is a bit more MVP, so we can get it into the player's hands as soon as possible. And what that means is some of these little solution features are going to come online later, but it also means that people are going to be asking for them because it can be difficult to max out a hero without them.
It's
Yeah,
easier
and-
now, though. I will say.
Yeah, yeah, we've made, even since that first Friends and Family wave, we've made a number of changes, both in terms of in the build, developed changes, but also in terms of economy. And actually it's the combination of those two things that really start to evolve what the game feels like. And even during the Friends and Family, we actually did a cut, change some economy, and then reset and go again. And even just doing that without changing any of the systems, it made the game feel really different, like really different and way better. So yes, there's a whole bunch of, and honestly, that's, I was saying to people that signed up for alphas, I was like, look, I know you all want to be in Alpha 1, okay? You all want that because you want to be the first group to play this game. But actually, you'll get a better experience in Alpha 2, and then there'll be an even better experience in the final Alpha wave, the competition wave, because we'll be taking in this feedback, we're making tweaks, we're making changes, and we've just got more time to get some of those, slightly more complicated developed things in. But that's still not going to be the final piece, right? We had a session yesterday, really good session, where we talked about what does soft launch look like? What are the sort of features we need to really be able to test out for soft launch and for a beta, and then extend out those feature sets once we've got that validation from, again, a wider player base, into main launch. So this has been the thing for me, I think, is as a first game project that I've been involved in, it's like you don't go from 0 to 100. You kind of take these bite-sized chunks and incremental improvements. Okay, you've got the sort of what does 100 look like with this kind of like whole feature set and vision of the different heroes, and what do the events look like, and how could that be fun? You've got all of these things in your mind and eventually down as a kind of plan, but it's almost impossible unless you want to launch a game in 4 years to get all of those things done. And by the point that you do that, you're probably outdated anyway.
Too late.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and certainly, Corey, it'd be good to get your take on this. I know that you've been through this process of almost like taking a game and helping it evolve in terms of the product. Yeah, almost like, I guess, what percentage of a game do you think would launch as like a soft launch versus where they would aim to be in terms of feature sets and stuff like that?
Really depends on the studio, the goals, and what kind of game it is. Especially mobile is a little different from what we see happening in the PC world.
Yeah.
I think we're ahead of the game, actually. We're getting our core loop validated, just the combat, the camera, the characters. At Scopely, we would have done that internally and waited until we had the store and the meta and the monetization set up.
Right.
I don't think there's any one right way to do it. And the fact that it's so rare for a game to release and, actually succeed suggests that, the industry might not know how to successfully ship a game at a high probability, right? And so it's more about what is your team and what are your strengths and how do you use those to ship your game. And our strength is we're the community and influencers are a part of this team, and they're friends with influencers, and they're friends with influencers. And so, yeah, he said we had 100 influencers signed up for our alpha. And so
Yeah.
I think doing it this way is what will help us hopefully develop a really amazing RPG.
And are there any things like from your time at any of the places that you worked where you were like, we, and we don't have to call out the individual company or game or whatever, that it's like, we really definitely don't want to approach something like this. Some learnings, I guess, from your time at these other groups.
Well, I'm gonna answer the opposite question.
There you go.
What we should do. Uh, so one of the great leaders in this industry, Aaron Loeb, he was president of Fox Next Games and the chief business officer at Scopely, and now he's leading up a new games department at Lego. Which, just imagine all the building blocks they have, right? It's gonna be amazing. But he would go on his tour across every company and say right at the front, great games are made by great teams. And so when you ask what is a great team, I think everyone has different answers and it's not always clear. And, sometimes investing in team building results in people going off to like a winery or a brewery and having drinks together. But does that actually make for a better team? And so one of his ways of building great teams was having clarity on what good looks like.
Hmm.
And specifically from a data perspective, we have a lot of data in our industry that doesn't really help with decision making. So we might think of an ARPDAU, which is like an average revenue per daily active user. But it turns out your ARPDAU can be going up while your business is collapsing because all of your players, but the biggest spenders might be leaving. And so he had a KPI called regularity, which they discovered at Kabam. And it was this idea that if you create a game that's enjoyable to play every day, not just a few days a week, but every day, then your regular customers who are playing 7 days a week, there's like every game I've ever seen with this data, by the way, it's like less than 0.5% of them don't show up the week after. And so great teams are aligned on making games that are fun to play every day. So games that create regularity. And that's how you start building these communities that just grow and grow and grow. And it was a big part of Monopoly Go. They've got great regularity and they've grossed more money than any game apparently ever within their time frame released by a Western dev studio, like billions of dollars, entertaining millions of people, having a lot of fun. It was a big part of Marvel Strike Force and helping them figure out, is our game becoming more satisfying, more fun? Are these features hitting their expectations? And I think for us, as we try and figure out how we can make our already great team even better and better, our ability to align on, what does good look like and how do we know from our audience if we're delivering it? I think that's going to go a really long way for us.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I feel like that metric is such a good one because it's something that you kind of intuit and you think of like, okay, these are the things that we want. We want players to be having fun. We want them to be interested in coming back and playing every day because they're going to have cool events. They're going to have cool things that they should do. But I think that measuring that and then understanding how powerful it is and how good of an indicator it is, I think that's awesome. And I think that what you said about having everybody kind of like pointed in that same direction, understanding that that's what we're building for. I think that it's really nice to have, because I think that's what we've been, Simon's been saying, I've been saying, Dan's been saying, the whole team has been kind of like pushing towards like, hey, this is what's really interesting. But to now have like a really great way to measure that, I think that's very powerful. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched for us to start to get this data, have people playing the game a lot, and then seeing, what's convincing them to keep playing. What is the thing what's fun basically. That's the Mr. Beast always talks about how people complain about people not watching their video because of the algorithm. Well, I mean, the people are the algorithm, right? They're either watching it or they're not watching it, and that's usually going to tell you whether your content is good or not, in a sense. But yeah, I mean, like I feel like we need to ask you some really important questions here, Brad. I feel like it might be about that time. The most important questions of the whole podcast. So let's head over to that.
Yeah. So Corey, one thing we like to give people an opportunity to do is just kind of gut reaction. Is there somebody that stands out to you, in terms of a myth or legend or something from the God Forged vein of heroes that would make sense to have in our game? That is like a personal favorite for you. That's like, hey, I wish this person was in our game. It would be epic if we could bring them to life within the God Forged universe. Do you have an example that stands out to you?
like Robin Hood, something
Exactly.
like like yeah, it doesn't have to
He's
be
already
that,
going to
of
be in the
course.
game. He's a legendary. So besides Robin Hood,
Now, hear me out. I was like a massive Stargate fan. I don't really know how we stick Daniel Jackson in our game. It might not make any sense, but it feels weird seeing all of these guys and Daniel Jackson isn't there to explain
just
what's happening to
it'll
us.
just
Just
be
Daniel
Daniel
Jackson,
Jackson.
yeah.
Okay, I mean he's a legend. I'm with you. It's gods, myths, and legends.
I think though, because these games go on for years, and instead of like an individual person, I think the future of introducing an entire new faction or new factions, and there's a lot of mythologies that we don't necessarily get a lot of exposure to in the West, mythologies from like Africa and South
Yeah.
America and different parts of Asia. And I'm excited to see what those characters look like in our game and how they come together and form teams.
Love it, love it.
cool,
Awesome, man.
great. Well, yeah, this was a fun chat, guys. And Corey, welcome to the team. It's great to have you. It's been a blast to work with you so far. So that'll do it for us on this one. And we'll have all the links down below. By the time this releases, the alpha is probably going to be kicking off and things are ramping up. So head on over to the Discords that we've got linked down below and you can provide your feedback on Godforge as well. So thanks, guys. We'll see you soon in the next Fateless podcast episode.
And let us know
Fateless.
what caverns you're at in the
That's
comments
right.
below. See where you're at. See where you're at.
All right. See ya.